There's an arrest warrant out for your son.
What? My mind went blank when I heard those words. What? Why? My son? What do you mean, arrested? Questions swirled through my mind, coming and going. I stood dumbfounded at the door, unable to speak, as the police officer stepped onto the doorstep. It was probably to prevent me from closing the door. Feeling a sense of danger, I instinctively tried to shut it.
Your son is home, isn't he? We're coming in.
Wait, please, just wait a moment. I desperately tried to stop the officer from coming in. I pushed against his chest. I planted my feet firmly in front of the door, trying to block him. Look, I have no idea what you're talking about. Could you at least explain what's going on? I pleaded with the officer. He folded the arrest warrant and let out a big sigh.
Ma'am, I get it. You never thought your son would commit theft, did you?
Theft.
He ran off with cash. He was clearly identified, so there's no denying it.
His tone was exasperated. Theft? My son? But I forced myself to process the officer's words, despite my mind reeling. With a pale face, I turned to the officer and said, "My son would never do such a thing."
Parents always say that.
The officer responded, looking tired. But I was certain my son was innocent. Because I'm just an ordinary housewife, Mary Smith, 50 years old. My husband, son, and I worked hard to save up and build a house where the three of us live happily. The three of us get along great and enjoy our days together. I was in the middle of a happy life, or so I thought. But now, I was feeling a bit tired. Lately, things haven't been going well, and whenever I'm alone, all I can think about is how hard everything is. Oh, I need to take care of that too. Even when I was alone, I couldn't help but say out loud all the things I needed to do. Ugh, maybe I can do it later. I tried to escape reality by lazily turning on the TV at home. When my mind isn't working, I should take a little break. My body feels tired too. Making excuses to myself, I watched a soap opera. But even then, I couldn't really focus on the show, and my mind stayed blank. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see various certificates and trophies lined up. My son, Michael, had won numerous awards in soccer. I was really proud of him. While I was thinking about that, ding dong. Oh, yes, coming. The doorbell rang. I turned down the volume on the TV and got up from the couch. Maybe my mother-in-law sent something again, or maybe it's something I ordered online. Sometimes my mother-in-law sends us vegetables without notice. She finds it a hassle to call each time, so she sometimes sends them without any warning. But lately, my son has been doing a lot of online shopping. My husband picked up the habit and has also started shopping online. That might be the case. Thinking about that, I headed to the door without any caution. If I had checked the camera on the doorbell, I wouldn't have been so surprised. But since I wasn't being cautious, I didn't check the camera and went straight to the door. Okay, I'm opening. I opened the door. I was shocked by what I saw in front of me.
Hello. Is this the Smith residence?
Oh, yes. What do the police need? There were 3 police officers standing at the door, just like in the dramas I had just watched, wearing masks. It's funny. When you see the police, you get nervous, even if you haven't done anything wrong. Like maybe you did something without realizing it. So yes, I was really nervous. My hand gripping the door went stiff. One of the officers held up a piece of paper for me to see. I couldn't understand what it was. As I squinted to see it, arrest. One of the officers, showing me the paper, coldly said,
There's an arrest warrant out for your son.
"What?" I blurted out as stunned, "What?" It came out instinctively without thinking. And then my mind went completely blank. Wait, why? My son? Arrested? What does that mean? Did he do something? Questions floated through my mind, one after another. I stood at the door, my mouth opening and closing in shock, unable to speak, as the police officer stepped onto the doorstep. This was surely to prevent me from closing the door. Faced with 3 large men, I felt a sense of danger and instinctively tried to shut the door. But the officer wouldn't allow it. He pressed his foot against the door to keep it open. It was terrifying.
Your son is home, right? May we come in?
Oh, well,
If there's nothing to hide, it should be fine to let us in, right?
Wait, hold on a second. I desperately tried to stop the officer from coming in. I pushed against his chest. I planted my feet firmly in front of the door, trying to block him. I have no idea what this is about. Could you at least explain what's going on? I pleaded with the officer. I had no idea what they were talking about. What could my son have done to get an arrest warrant? Then one of the officers folded the warrant and let out a big sigh.
Ma'am, I understand. You never thought your son would commit theft, right?
Theft.
Recently, there's been a lot of theft in this area. According to witnesses, your son looks very similar to the suspect.
Someone saw my son?
Yes, it seems he ran off with some cash. Some witnesses saw him running towards your house. There are even people who got a good look at his face, so there's no denying it.
He said this with an exasperated expression. Theft. My son. I forced the officer's words into my blank mind. One of the officers, looking at me, opened another piece of paper and started talking. I wasn't shown the paper. He began to speak, seemingly reading from it.
Well, it seems your son is involved in several thefts. The total amount of the damage is about $30,000. However, the victims are willing to settle since your son is still young.
$30,000. There's no way my son could do something like that.
Parents always say that. For now, please prepare the $30,000. We'd like to speak with your son.
I shouted in shock, but the officer responded with a tired expression. But while looking at the officer's face, I thought, and then reached for the door again. Please wait outside for a moment.
No, we'll wait inside.
I need to use the bathroom. Surely you wouldn't be so unreasonable as to enter the house and search while the homeowner is in the bathroom, right? Or can't you wait 5 minutes for me to use the bathroom? I said whatever came to mind. I needed a moment to calm down. Most importantly, the large male officers were terrifying, and I wanted to close the door. Please, just let me use the bathroom quickly. I promise I'll listen to everything you have to say.
Ma'am.
I just can't. It's urgent.
What?
The officer hesitated for a moment at my words. Seizing the chance, I slammed the door shut. There was a loud bang. It was probably the sound of an officer's foot hitting the door. But I ignored it, shut the front door, and quickly locked it. As soon as I heard the lock click, my mind was flooded with various thoughts. Relief, fear, and numerous questions. Bang, bang, bang. Whoa!
Open up, ma'am.
The officers pounded on the door. Worried about disturbing the neighbors, I slowly backed away from the door. I'll be right back. Just going to the bathroom. I hurried to the bathroom. I didn't really need to go, but it seemed like the right thing to do. Calm down, calm down. I muttered to myself, desperately trying to stay composed. As I talked to myself, my mind began to clear up bit by bit. I actually went into the bathroom and sat down. My hand, holding the toilet paper, was shaking. There was no way Michael could be involved in a crime. It had to be a case of mistaken identity. I decided to face the officers with a firm attitude. After all, we had nothing to hide. After about 5 minutes, I returned to the front door. Phew. Taking a deep breath, I unlocked the door. I faced the 3 officers again.
Ma'am.
One of the officers yelled at me. Despite my efforts to remain calm, I spoke to myself internally, trying to stay composed.
You didn't let your son escape during that time, did you? Anyway, let us in to search the house.
He didn't escape, and, as I said before, my son didn't commit theft. He couldn't have.
It doesn't matter what you say. We have eyewitness testimonies and camera footage. If you cover for your son, you'll be in trouble too.
You didn't mention cameras earlier, did you?
Well, if you won't admit it, we'll have to show you the evidence.
First, you said he looks similar, and now you're saying it's definitely him. Your story keeps changing, doesn't it?
Ma'am, I understand you don't want to believe it, but
The officer kept pushing me, but his words were inconsistent and strange. He kept bringing up new information. This seems suspicious, and now that I look closely, their uniforms, they look like something out of a TV show. I stared intently at the youngest-looking officer. When he met my gaze, he quickly looked away. That made him seem even more suspicious.
ma'am, enough of this. We're coming in.
Hey, wait, you can't just. The largest and oldest-looking officer, frustrated with my refusal to let them in, pushed me aside and entered the house. Stop, don't come in. I tried to push back like before, but there was no way I could overpower a grown man. Ah! I fell on my backside as the officer pushed past me. As soon as I hit the ground, the 3 officers barged into the house. I quickly got up, rubbing my sore bottom. I rushed after the officers who were heading further into the house. "Hey, you can't just come in like this, and don't touch that," I shouted at the officers. But my words fell on deaf ears as the 3 officers opened and closed every drawer in the kitchen and living room, rummaging through everything. Seeing them touch and mess with everything made me feel sick. I said, "Stop, hey." One officer was opening the drawer where I kept my precious wedding ring. I rushed over and slammed the drawer shut. Bang! The loud noise echoed. "There's nothing here. You can't just invade someone's home and open all their drawers." I glared at the young officer who had averted his eyes earlier. He nodded slightly and moved to another room. Soon, the 3 officers headed toward my son's room. There was a nameplate with his name on the door. They immediately knew it was his room. They could easily tell it was my son's room. The 3 officers entered the room without any hesitation. "That's my son's room. He's sleeping right now. Don't go in," I screamed with all my might. But they didn't listen and opened the door.
We need to talk to him.
What?
Huh?
This time, it wasn't me, but the 3 officers who froze. They stopped dead in their tracks upon entering my son's room. All their eyes were fixed on the bed in the room.
"Nice to meet you. I heard the conversation. I'm Michael."
My son greeted the 3 officers politely from his bed. Then, spreading his hands and smiling slightly, he spoke to the officers.
"Oh, as you can see, there's no way I could have committed theft."
The officers stared at my son in silence. He was lying in a hospital bed with a special mattress to prevent bed sores. Next to the bed was a wheelchair. There were lots of towels and a call button. In front of them was my bedridden son. The officers were shocked.
Oh well. Sorry. It seems we made a mistake.
The officer who had been speaking threateningly to me gave a strained smile. My son also smiled a little.
"Yeah, I thought so. Glad to hear it. I can't move my lower body, so it's kind of impossible for me to commit theft and run away."
He pointed to his wheelchair. The officers nervously glanced at it.
"I need someone's help just to get into that. I can't even go outside on my own."
Oh, I see. Sorry for the mistake. We'll just.
The officers began to apologize and prepared to leave. I felt a surge of anger and clenched my fists, ready to say something. But then, one of the officers didn't leave my son's room. Instead, he approached my son.
What happened to you? What happened to you?
"Huh? Is that you, Alex?"
My son Michael looked at the approaching officer with a happy expression. I turned around, surprised. It was the youngest officer. When he raised his face to get a good look at my son, I realized it was Alex, Michael's old classmate. "Oh my, Alex." I was so surprised. Alex Peterson. He was Michael's friend from elementary school. They were also soccer buddies. In elementary school, Michael and Alex were on the soccer team together. They both loved soccer and practiced together almost every day, always coming home together. They were that close. We used to talk about how they would probably join the soccer club together in middle school. But then Alex had to move away. His family had to relocate due to his parents' work, and they had to say goodbye. The sudden move left no time to exchange contact information, and they lost touch.
I followed your soccer career. I saw you in magazines after you got into college. So, what happened?
Alex looked at Michael with a face that had gone from pale to white. He had a look of disbelief. Seeing Alex's expression, Michael pulled back the blanket. There were his legs, now immobile.
I was in an accident about a month ago. Now I'm paralyzed from the waist down.
He smiled faintly, looking a bit sad. Alex stared at him with a pained expression. Noticing this, Michael covered his legs again and gave a big, forced smile.
But enough about that. It's been so long. You became a cop. What about soccer? Did you quit?
Alex's face grew complex. He mumbled a bit before answering quietly.
I'm not as talented as you, and things were tough at home.
I remembered hearing rumors back in elementary school that Alex's father didn't have a steady job and was out drinking every night. I heard they moved because debt collectors were after them. Michael, now sitting up, spoke eagerly.
What are you talking about? You always worked hard. I was always jealous of you. You never gave up, and that was so cool. I was able to do my best thanks to you.
That's not true.
But now you're working hard as a police officer. Seeing you gives me strength.
I see.
I should get back to it. Hey, let's play soccer again sometime. Where do you live now? Even though I'm like this, I can still play soccer as a disabled person. Alex?
Alex looked down. His face was pale. Michael leaned in to check on him.
Hey, are you okay, Alex?
Ugh.
Hey, Alex.
Tears began to drip onto the floor. Alex started crying as he looked at Michael.
Hey, what's wrong?
Michael tried to talk to him, but Alex was too overwhelmed to respond and was struggling to hold back his sobs. Meanwhile, the other two officers quietly slipped past me. Where are you going? I glared at the two officers. They flinched at my angry gaze.
Oh, well, it was a mistake. We need to continue our investigation, so we'll be going.
What? Without even an apology? Unbelievable. They touched and messed up everything. I was about to shout at them when it happened.
I quit.
Alex raised his head and faced the two officers. Tears were still in his eyes, but he glared at them with determination.
What? You can't just quit now.
You're the one who said this place was rich.
You know this is wrong. I'm telling the police everything.
What? You little.
An argument broke out between the officers. One of them angrily marched toward Alex. Bang. Hey, stop it. I tried to stop him, but it was no use. I was too scared to move, and only my voice responded. The officer threw a punch at Alex. His face turned bright red from the hit. Alex staggered and fell to the floor, but the other officer kicked him.
Ugh.
Then you pay the money. Pay your dad's debt. Got it?
Bang! Slam! The two big men continued to hit and kick him. I was too shocked and scared to stop them. After a while, they finally let Alex go. Even clutching his stomach, Alex looked up at them and said he would turn himself in.
I'm turning myself in. I'm sorry, Michael. I'm not the person you used to know. I've always been jealous of you. I don't have any talents, a good family, but I hate myself for using that as an excuse to do terrible things.
You.
One of the officers raised his hand to hit Alex again when
Hands up!
What?
everyone turned to look. I felt relieved and my legs gave way when I saw who had arrived.
Back off. Now.
Ma'am, are you all right?
An officer, showing his badge, entered. He quickly restrained the fake officers with practiced ease. He was a real cop.
I'm sorry we took so long. Are you and your son okay?
Oh, yes, we're fine. Somehow. The truth was, I had called the police while I was in the bathroom. I suspected something was off with the three people claiming to be police officers. So I decided to call the police myself.
Ouch.
Stay still.
The fake officers were being taken away. They struggled, but the real police restrained them efficiently and swiftly escorted them out of the house. They also helped Alex, who was lying on the floor in pain, to stand up and let him out. Alex complied without resistance.
Alex,
Michael called out. Alex stopped and looked at Michael and me. Then he bowed his head as low as he could.
I'm sorry.
He said, and was taken away by the police. Michael watched until Alex was out of sight. That day, we were questioned and cleaned up the house while waiting for my husband to return. Even though he was busy and worked far away, he rushed home as soon as he could. He kept apologizing for not being able to respond immediately, but I told him not to worry since everything turned out okay. A few days later, Alex was the only one of the three who confessed everything to the police. It turned out they were connected through high school. There had indeed been a series of thefts in this area, and it turned out that these thefts were their doing. They targeted wealthy homes, tricking parents into thinking their children were involved and extorting money from them. The arrest warrants were forgeries, and the police uniforms were just costumes. Most parents panicked upon hearing about theft and seeing the police uniforms, making it easy to deceive them. However, this time, their scheme was exposed, and they were caught. As for Alex, he initially worked hard to repay his father's debts. However, he was unable to pay it off due to the interest, and he was apparently tempted by this incident and decided to pay back his debt. He was coerced into this scheme with promises of debt relief if he provided information about wealthy families in his old neighborhood. That's why they knew so much about the area and had managed to avoid detection until now. In the end, they were all charged and arrested. They faced serious charges for unlawfully entering homes and attempting to extort money. Most of all, Impersonating police officers resulted in severe penalties. Michael wasn't shocked. Instead, he nodded in agreement.
He decided to turn himself in and face the consequences. I always knew Alex was a good guy at heart.
He listened to my story with a smile.
Yeah, but it's amazing they didn't get caught sooner with that look.
Did you know from the start, Michael?
Well, it's hard to believe someone who isn't fit could be a cop. Alex was in much better shape back then. Seeing him now, it was obvious it was a lie.
Michael had been observant. When I asked him later, he said he noticed that Alex kept his head down and avoided eye contact. And although his voice had changed, it still sounded like Alex. He had felt suspicious about many things. I wonder how long it will take for him to come back. It hasn't been decided yet.
It's okay. No matter how long it takes, he can reform. I know he can. He's still the same person he was.
Michael said firmly. A month later, I brought breakfast to Michael's room. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Mom. Did you get one today?
Michael asked about something else before breakfast. Smiling, I handed him a letter. It was a simple envelope. Gosh, you care more about Alex than breakfast?
Well, yeah.
Michael held the letter. It was from Alex. What does it say?
He wants to play soccer together. He's been exercising over there too.
It seemed like a cheerful letter had arrived. Seeing my son read the letter with a happy face made me smile too. Beside him was a new wheelchair, different from the one before. It was for playing soccer. Michael decided to start practicing soccer in a wheelchair. He began training for power soccer, a version of soccer for electric wheelchair users. After he decided to play soccer with Alex again, Michael immediately told me and his father about it. He was eager to play soccer in a wheelchair. He was full of motivation. Seeing my son like that made me decide. There are tough times and things that don't go well, but it's not just me. Even my always smiling son must have his struggles. Yet he keeps moving forward with a positive attitude, and that inspired me. I decided to live my life to the fullest too. Today, I felt like I could do anything I set my mind to.